I'm sure I've talked to 100 of you about parenting in the last year or two, and I'm pretty sure that a good 75% of the conversational material that we've come up with as we talk about parenting is culture. What's going to happen to my kids, to my grandkids in today's culture? You know, post the Obergefell decision from the Supreme Court, the Benedict option, LGBTQ issues, everything in public schools, everything kind of seems so upside down in our culture. Where was Israel when they heard this sermon on the plains of Moab about to enter Canaan? Question: what was the culture like in the land of Canaan? This is how it works. Anytime you hear someone say, nothing like what we're seeing today has ever happened in history ever before. Anytime you hear someone say that, I assure you, the person who's saying that knows very little about history. There's nothing new under the sun. And whatever you want to say about the culture in the United States of America in 2017, it is not more messed up than the culture of the Canaanites in the years that this was written. I could show you in the books that I have on my shelf. I don't even know if I would show it on the screens on a Sunday morning because it's frankly very obscene and violent and pornographic. What the kinds of things that were exalted in the culture of the Canaanites. And so here's Moses telling the parents, if you're worried about how this culture is going to impact your kids, this is what you've got to do to nail it down. This is it. And what does he say? What does he say? What's his massive weapon or his massive vaccine that's going to protect your kids and make it work? Look at what he says. He just kind of says, wherever you're going, when you walk along the way, or when you're sitting in your house, or when you're going to the store, when you lie down, or when you wake up, just talk to your kids about what's going on with God and what God said in his word. The one thing that actually isn't mentioned in verse 7 is talk to your kids about God when you're at church. It's actually one place that isn't mentioned. It doesn't say the temple or the tabernacle for that matter. It says, talk about them everywhere else. Now listen, I'm saying this seriously. This is not an exaggeration. We work hard here at church to talk to your kids about God. All the massive army of volunteers in the Crosswalk ministry in Awana, Dan Miller and all the people that disciple in our middle school and our high school ministry, they work hard. But everything that they do is a supplement, it's a vitamin, it's a boost. The main meal always has been and always will be served in the home. That's the way it has always been. That's the way it always will be. The main talk, the main attitude that's going to be picked up about God, theology, morality, sex, money, is picked up in the home more than it is for a couple of hours in the church building. Everyday talk is far, far more important than these kind of planned, perfect talks. We think we need this $100 moment when we can exactly answer our kids and tell them what they need. God's showing you in Deuteronomy 6 that God does not have planned for you a $100 perfect moment that you can prepare for. God's will for you is 100 $1 moments. Every Tuesday, every Wednesday, every Thursday, every Saturday. And he wants you to be prepared for those. You see? That's what he's saying right there in verse 7. Is that you're not going to get a $100 moment, you're going to get 100 $1 moments. That's what he says in verse 7. And so this is the question that you should ask. I sure hope you're asking this question. How can I be ready for those 100 $1 moments? If my hope is in this like special devotional time, I can get ready for that and script it and carry it out. But if I have to be ready for 100 $1 moments, how do I get ready for that? And I'm so glad that that's the question we're asking, because that's what's delivered to us in verses 4 and 5 and 6. That's what he's saying. He's saying in verses 4 and 5 and 6, the way that you can be ready to share with your kids in all of those little moments is simply this. You see verse 5? You need to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. That verse is not about the heart and soul and might of your spouse or your kids or the youth workers that you send your kids off to straighten them out. That verse is about your soul, your heart, your might. And so here we are on the plains of Moab. And Moses is launching these families into the most corrupt culture that you could imagine. And the weapon that will guard and prosper and protect those children is not some massive catapult. And it's not some fire from heaven that's going to burn up Sodom and Gomorrah or something like this. The weapon that's going to protect those children is simple, unplanned, imperfect talk about God that comes from the heart and soul and mind and strength of a person who really has the Word of God on their heart. Because the one thing I don't want you to miss is the last 3 words of verse 6. Do you see it? Do you see those words? Those words belong to you. The last 3 words of verse 6. On your heart. The only way for you to be ready to deliver for your family in all of the ups and downs that your family is going to go through is if the Word of God is on your heart. That's so much more important than having a 10-minute, deal closing speech about the Word of God. Is it on your heart? What does it mean for the Word of God to be on your heart? What it means for the Word of God to be on your heart is simply this. The Word of God is on your heart if the Word of God is so deep within you that you cannot think of you without thinking of the Word of God. The Word of God is on your heart if the Word of God is so deep within you that you cannot think of you without thinking of the Word of God. The Word of God is on your heart if the Word of God becomes, and oh, how I pray it will become this. The Word of God is on your heart if it becomes for you the ever-present, non-retractable lens through which you see everything you see and evaluate everything you evaluate. So it actually doesn't become possible for you to see and evaluate things without thinking about the Word of God. This is what these verses are describing. It's called being a woman or a man of conviction. So that your unconsidered, almost unthinking reaction to things always includes God and His Word because it's that deep on your heart.